Hi guys, I'm back again with another video. Today I'll be talking about the RAWM SH01 Pro and the RAWM MH01 Pro. First things first, these two mice were sent out to me by RAWM, but of course, that doesn't affect my thoughts and opinions for this review. So let's start off this review with the RAWM SH01 Pro. This mouse, after about a week of testing, has been very good to me. Build quality on this thing is very solid, hasn't shown any signs of flexing nor creaking. Overall, just a very good mouse. Even if I death grip this thing, it still has shown me very good stability. Now for the shape, the ROM SH01 Pro is actually very similar, maybe even near one-to-one to the original Viper Mini that I have over here. I'd say the only difference is the height. The height on the Viper Mini is slightly taller compared to the ROM over here, or the SH01 over here. In hand, you actually barely notice it. And as for the grip style that I use on this mouse, I still use a normal claw grip. My hand size is 21 by 10 centimeters, and even though it's on the bigger side, this mouse actually feels nice to claw grip. If you compare it to a bigger mouse over here like the Viper V3 Pro, the Viper V3 Pro definitely fills in my hand a lot better compared to the ROM SH01 Pro. But even then, I'd say the ROM still feels really good to claw grip. Another good thing that I like about this mouse is how nice it feels to fingertip grip. Back then, when I was maining my Viper Mini, I used to switch to more of like a hybrid of a claw and fingertip, something like this, where it's a bit of a claw grip where my palm slightly touches the hump of the Viper Mini. But over here on the ROM, I actually don't really do that anymore. After like years of using other mice, I just tend to normally use a claw grip. But for fingertip, it's actually very nice. I've used this on aim labs. I normally use fingertip on aim labs, and it's actually been very good. Haven't had any problems with moving too much in hand while I'm like aiming. So overall, just very good shape, very comfortable, very nice. For like medium to smaller hands, this is definitely a very good pickup for those guys. Now, I'm pulling up Elo Shapes just to show you guys the difference between the ROM SH01 Pro and the Razer Viper Mini over here, the differences and the similarities. So as you can see here, the size of the SH01 Pro is 118 by 61 by 38 millimeters in length, width, and height, and then the weight is at 55 grams. And then for the Viper Mini, it's 119 by 62 by 39 millimeters in length, width, and height. And then the weight is at 61 grams. I believe that the weight of the Viper Mini is without the cable included. I could be wrong, but I do think that it is. The SH01 Pro is technically a smaller Viper Mini, I guess, but not really that big of a difference. What you see here, you could definitely see that it's a smaller version of the Viper, or it's slightly smaller than the Viper Mini. But overall, still very good shape, very good mouse. Both mice are actually very good. The only thing that I didn't really enjoy on the Viper Mini is the LOD. The Viper Mini originally is a little bit too high for my liking. As you can see over here, I actually added electrical tape just to slightly fix the issue. The LOD is actually still pretty high. I'm actually lifting the mouse by a lot right now, and the LOD is still pretty high in my opinion. Overall, I still think that the Viper Mini is still pretty good. It's just that there are definitely way better mice like the SH01 Pro that have just a better sensor, better polling rate, and just overall just have better specs. Now, speaking of specs, this uses the PAW 3950 from Pixar for its sensor, supports up to 8000 Hz polling, and then up to 30,000 dpi. One of the things I also like about the feature of this mouse is the hot swap capability of it. You can change the switches to whatever you like. Originally, it came with the Huano green shell white dots, but my copy, I changed it to the TTC Golds just because I like the sound of the TTC Golds and the feel of it a little bit more than the Huano green shell white dots. Now, for the skates, these came in with full-size PTFE skates that are dyed black, as you can see over on the sensor skate over here. It's dyed black. Personally, I didn't really like them that much. They just felt a little bit too slow for me, and I feel like after a couple of days of usage, they'll wear down quite quickly. So I actually changed them to these dot skates over here, which are the Tiger Eyes V2s. Now for the coating's actually very good. Pretty similar to the coating of the Viper V3 Pro over here in white. When your hands get warm and moist, it actually gets pretty grippy. But if your hands are pretty dry, it is actually very slippery, and I highly suggest using grip tapes for it. But overall, even after about a week of usage, it's actually very nice and very grippy still. Actually really like the coating on this. One of the things that I don't like about it though is how bad the fingerprint stains are. It's a fingerprint magnet. I don't really mind it, to be honest with you. I can just clean it with some wet wipes or like a microfiber cloth, and it can like somewhat go away, I guess. But overall, just very good coating in my opinion. Now moving on to the review, let's talk about the RAWM MH01 Pro. The build quality on the RAWM MH01 Pro is actually very solid after weeks of use. Both mice, the SH01 Pro and the MH01 Pro, have very good build quality in my opinion. Very solid, no creaking, no flexing, no rattling. Just overall, very good job from RAWM over here. The shape of the RAWM MH01 Pro is actually quite similar to the Razer Viper V3 Pro over here. The only difference is at the rear area. The RAWM MH01 Pro is actually a lot wider compared to the Viper V3 Pro. I'd say the rear of the MH01 Pro is pretty similar to my Glorious Elo wireless over here. This one is actually a modded version that I modded way back. I believe the rear of this is actually a little bit more like the Razer Viper V2 Pro. Unfortunately, I never have, or nor have I tried the Viper V2 Pro shape. I'm looking at it on Elo Shapes. Let me just actually pull it up over here. Now, looking at Elo Shapes over here, you can definitely see the difference between all four mouse that I've mentioned. So the MH01 Pro over here is very similar on its rear end to the Elo wireless as well as the Razer Viper V2 Pro over here. All three having 66mm in width. But for the height, it's actually quite similar to the Razer Viper V3 Pro. Like I said, the only difference is at the width being smaller on the Viper V3 Pro. Actually, that's how I would describe the MH01 Pro. Is it's a slightly bigger version of the Viper V3 Pro over here. But overall, they're actually pretty similar. Just that the RAWM MH01 Pro is a little bit bigger than the Viper V3 Pro in hand. One of the things that I also found that is bigger compared to the Viper V3 Pro is the back over here. Even though the height is nearly identical at 40mm, the wideness of the back or the hump of the MH01 Pro is actually a little bit wider. I think it's probably because of the width originally being at 66mm compared to the Viper V3 Pro's 64. Just overall, fairly similar, just a slightly bigger version over here on the MH01 Pro of the Viper V3 Pro over here. Now, the weight of the MH01 Pro is actually 69 grams compared to the original MH01, which is actually the only MH01 over here on Elo Shapes. They don't actually have the Pro version. But if you look at the RAWM website over here, you can see that it actually weighs at 69 grams. But even though it's on the heavier side of things, the weight balancing is actually very good in my opinion. I actually don't really feel how heavy it is compared to a Viper V3 Pro. So in my opinion, it's still a very good mouse, just a very good weight balance mouse. Now the skates on the RAWM MH01 Pro is actually similar to the skates or the original skates of the SH01 Pro. These also use the full-sized PTFE skates that are dyed black, as you can see on the sensor ring over there. Like I said earlier, they're not that good in my opinion. I still feel like they're going to wear down after a couple of days of use. So I also changed the skates on these to Tigerized V2 dot skates. Now for the coating of the RAWM MH01 Pro, both SH01 Pro and MH01 Pro have similar coating where when your hands, like I said earlier, get warm and wet when you play, or the mouse actually feels a lot grippier. I'd say the coating on my MH01 Pro after a week of use is actually slightly worse than the SH01. Actually, no, it's a lot worse than the SH01 Pro. I'd say it's actually a little bit more similar to the coating now of my Viper V3 Pro, and this one has actually been with me and have been using it for like 2 months now. So it's actually insane how much wear and tear the coating of this mouse got after just a week of use. I've actually been switching these two mice day by day, basically using the MH01 this day and then the next day I'll use the SH01 Pro and so on and so forth. I'm just actually pretty surprised how bad the coating has gotten after just about a week of use. But even then, I still think that it's still pretty good. I'd say it's definitely not bad. Like I said, it's quite similar to the coating of the Viper V3 Pro, or like my Viper V3 Pro right now, which has been used for about 2 months, like I said. But yeah, I'm just pretty surprised on how worn out it got compared to the coating of my RAWM SH01 Pro. I'm not sure if it's because of the colors. I think maybe it is. Maybe for the white version, the coating tends to wear out a little bit quicker compared to the black version. But I could be wrong. I don't really have any other ROM mice to test it out with, but maybe it actually is because of it. Now for battery life, the RAWM MH01 Pro uses a 600 mAh battery, whilst the SH01 Pro uses a 300 mAh battery. After about 2 days of usage, both mice sat at around 80% battery life, which is actually weird for the SH01 Pro considering that it has a smaller battery. So when I checked it, it was actually pretty surprising to me. But the day after I checked it, I actually played a couple of games of Valorant, and then I checked it again later that night, and it actually sat at around 17%. So I actually had to charge it immediately because it was about to die. So I think there was just a little bit of a bug on the software, or I don't know what happened, but it definitely seems a lot more accurate now that I've seen it. But unfortunately, the battery life, even on 1000 Hz, which I used both mice on, the battery life on the SH01 Pro after like 2-3 days, maybe around 4 days actually, was a little bit worse than the MH01 Pro. But the MH01 Pro, after around 3-4 days, I believe it sat at around 60% battery, and then I charged like both mice to 100% after. Anyways, that's all for my review of the RAWM SH01 Pro and MH01 Pro. I'll leave a link down in the description to where you can get them, as well as to my other affiliate links and discount codes for other brands. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for future reviews. You can also follow me on my socials. Links will also be down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Peace out.